Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com. In this tutorial, I just want to give you a little bit of an overview, so no code in this video, of GUI programming in C++. Originally, I wanted to create a project for this course that was a GUI sort of desktop type project, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that now for reasons that I'll explain. So you can create GUIs, graphical user interfaces in C++, and stuff like, Microsoft Word, I guess, is written in C++, so that would be, a typical language to write it in. Let's just have a look at the images to remind us. Or at least it used to be anyway. So if you use C++ to create a desktop program, it's going to be really snappy and fast usually, if you write it well. And you get a nice .exe or whatever executable is appropriate for your platform type file that you can distribute using an installer. Usually you also need to learn a bit about installers, and there are some free installer programs you can that can help you to distribute your program as well. But writing graphical user interface stuff like Microsoft Word in C++ does tend to be quite hard work. There are several APIs, that's kind of extra libraries that you can download and use in your program that can help you with it. So I just want to look at a few of the most popular options here. So one thing you can do, I'm going to talk about cross-platform APIs, but one thing is you can use usually the native API for your platform, by which I really mean operating system. So if you're using Microsoft Windows, for example, then Windows will have an API, a set of C++ or C classes, and you can call C functions in C++, which you can use to do things like creating windows. I meant to type Windows API here. Here we go. So one option is, for example, on Windows, would be to use the Windows API, and you'll have functions there that can do things like create a window and do all the things you need to do. The problem with the Windows API, and I'm guessing probably Windows APIs on other platforms as well, Linux, I don't know about Mac, but I assume probably there's a Mac API, I guess, for C or C++. The problem with it is it's sort of fiddly, hard to work with and complicated. Last time I did any Windows desktop programming using the Windows API was probably more than 10 years ago, but from what I read, it hasn't really changed much. It's hard to work with, and not many people really want to take that route. So what you want to do is find an API that will enable you to create windows in a nicer way, and ideally a cross-platform API, which is what I'll talk about here. And there are various options. I'll just talk briefly about three. I haven't used any of these to any great extent, but you can investigate them if you want. So one option is called WX Widgets, and this is a free API. Whatever I say about the license terms here, I'd advise checking that for yourself if you're going to write a program in this. You need to make sure that you're complying with the license. As far as I know, WX Widgets is just free to use. There's no restrictions, but I advise you check that for yourself. Now, I couldn't get this to compile out of the box on my Mac, and I don't want to make tutorials involving something that doesn't compile out of the box really, because especially if you're learning C++, rather than say revising it or improving your knowledge, then it's not so nice to be fiddling with APIs that don't compile. So you have to download WX Widgets, and at least for the Mac anyway, you have to compile it. The situation might be better on Windows. I don't know, because I'm not using Windows these days, but you could try downloading that, Googling for a tutorial, and see if you can get it to work. And the good thing about WX Widgets, apart from being, as far as I know, free, is that it apparently produces programs that have a native look and feel, because behind the scenes it's using the native API of your platform. So on Windows it will be calling the Windows C or C++, I'm not sure these days, API to create the windows and all the different widgets and things. So WX Widgets is one to look at. Another one used to be called the GIMP Toolkit, and now it's called GTK Plus. So if we Google for GTK Plus, this, I don't think it produces like a really native look, and that may or may not bother you. But again, it's cross-platform. This was originally designed to create the image editor GIMP, which is a very good free image editor. Although I have to say that GIMP is a bit idiosyncratic. You wouldn't look at it as the nicest example of a graphical user interface desktop program that you could possibly find, but it does the job. I use it all the time. GIMP is a great piece of software for editing photos and images. So this was built to create GIMP, and now you can use this. And again, it's basically free, although you want to check the licensing terms in detail if you plan to use it. And once again, I couldn't get this to compile out the box on my Mac. So again, I didn't want to build a tutorial around this. The third option, finally, and this one did work out the box on my Mac, but I still don't want to make a tutorial on it for reasons I'll explain in a minute, is Qt Studio. So this is the sort of gorilla in the marketplace. If you want to create cross-platform, and really cross-platform, you can even make, I believe, programs that run on mobile phones and things, then probably you want to look at Qt Studio. Now, this isn't free. There are various options here, but there's a community version. And as far as I know, the situation is that you can sell programs made with a community version, but you can't do static linking, which means that you've got to distribute DLL or whatever type library files along with your executable, which might not bother you, especially if you are going to look up and install a program and learn to use that. Well, then again, it might. So I did some Googling about this license, and I tried to figure out the ins and outs of it, and it seems a bit opaque. So if I was planning to write some software and I was really putting months and months of effort into it, and I was hoping that it was going to make me a lot of money, I'd want to investigate the license terms for this Qt pretty thoroughly before using it. And there are various other options here which cost various amounts of money. I guess if you developed an application using the free version, then you found it was making you a lot of cash, then you probably wouldn't mind forking out for a professional license fee in any case. Now, the thing about Qt is that you can use it in Eclipse, but the normal way to use it is through Qt Studio. Maybe we can get some screenshots or something if I Google for it. I'm not sure if any of these are actually Qt Studio. Maybe that is, who knows. But in any case, yeah, perhaps it is. It's pretty nice. It's not mega easy to use, like like C# or something. And I didn't want to make a tutorial on this, partly because I'm not that familiar with it, and most of the C++ I've done has been more back-end, or else I've done something using a graphics API. It's not so bad to work with, but it's not as easy as something like C# or Visual Basic or something like that. So if I were to make a tutorial using this, it would end up being a tutorial about Qt Studio rather than C++. So I didn't really want to get into it for that reason, that and my lack of familiarity with it. But this is the big hitter in the marketplace, so it's well worth considering, especially if you try WX Widgets or GTK Plus and they don't fit your needs, or you can't get them to compile or something. Qt Studio, you should just be able to download it and start using it free, basically. Now, I probably should mention that it's really common with C++ to write your backend in C++ and then wire it to a front end that's written in some other language. It could even be Java, or perhaps on Windows, certainly it could be C#. C#'s very, very easy to learn and to use compared to GUI programming in C++, certainly. or it could be, even Visual Basic or something. So you could create a socket connection or something using C++ to a C++ backend. And I've worked on a number of applications that took that approach, where all the guts of it is written in C++, but you have some easy, nice thing to create a native looking GUI for a particular platform. And you use that as your front end, and that connects to the C++ backend. So that's another option if you've got a backend that does a lot of intensive stuff and you just want a nice, easy, lightweight front end. You could consider using multiple languages there. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. I'm a bit out of my depth with this subject, really, because as I say, I haven't done that much GUI programming, and most of it was a long time ago in the days of things like MFC, which is now obsolete. But if you really want a C++ GUI program, and you want a GUI program that runs really quickly, is really snappy, compiles to an executable and so on, then Qt Studio, or one of the other options, could do the trick for you. Okay, so that's it for this little overview. Until next time, happy coding.